faraway kingdom lived a master tailor named Jack. He usually made garments for all in the land, although his specialty was quilts. The land was ruled by a noble king and queen who lived in a great big palace. One day was summoned to the palace, and the king said to Jack, "I was pleased with the cape you had made me last month." "Thank you, sire," replied Jack. This time, for a purse of gold, I'd like you to make a quilt," said the king. Thought for a moment, looked into his sewing bag, and replied, "Well, sire, I already have patches here to make one for you right now." He took out some patches and laid them down on the floor and said, "There, complete with a key for king." The king said, "Not bad, but it's not big enough." Jack looked into his sewing bag again and said, "That's okay, as I have many more patches to amend to it. But first, may I have some help folding up the quilt?" he asked the king. "As when we do, we will see a beautiful portrait of the king." The king pointed to the palace spectators and demanded, "Help the tailor fold up the quilt." Everyone gathered around the quilt. "Sire, when the quilt is folded, I can ask it a magical question." He looked at the quilt and said, "Without any oath or cursing, give us a portrait of my favorite person." "Oh, shouldn't that be me?" queried the king. "Off with his head!" screamed the queen. "Wait, my dear," said the king. "He's going to make me a bigger quilt." "That's right, sire," Jack responded anxiously. "All I need to do is cut a few patches, move a few patches, add a few patches, and do a bit of sewing, and there, a bigger quilt." "This one is even the right size for the letter J for Jack. That's me." "That's not my quilt!" shouted the king. "Oh no, sire, I am just demonstrating what I can do," said Jack. "Off with his head!" screamed the queen. "Don't be silly, dear. Everyone help the tailor fold up the quilt again," said the king. "Again, you may fold it along this or that way," said Jack. "When the quilt is spread out, there will be a beautiful portrait of the king." He looked at the quilt and said, "If you can do anything, give me a portrait of the king." The king smiled. "Make me a bigger quilt," demanded the queen. "That quilt is not any bigger, it's only wider," said the king. "Your Majesty isn't as dumb as he looks," said Jack. "No problem, sire. We'll just cut a few patches, move a few patches, add a few patches, do a little sewing, and voila!" "And we must use the royal K instead of that silly J," said the king. "Oh, of course we must," said Jack. So he made a K on the quilt. "Excellent, I'll take that. Everyone help the tailor fold up the quilt," demanded the king as he smiled. "That was supposed to be my quilt. Off with his head!" the queen yelled. "One moment, as I can do that magically," said Jack. So he looked at the folded quilt, saying, "Now a portrait, at my command, of the ruler of the land." The queen smiled, and that is the story of how Jack saved his head.